Good afternoon, everyone. Caresoft Technology would like to welcome you to our ServiceNow webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly go over just a few housekeeping items. The audio portion of this webinar can be heard through your computer speakers, or if you prefer, you can listen through your phone using the dial-in option displayed on your screen. That is in your top left-hand corner. That will be the best way to hear your audio today for the clearest sound. Please note all your lines have been muted just to reduce any kind of background noise during that presentation. If you do have any questions, though, throughout the webinar, we have that Q&A pod on the left-hand side of your screen, and we will make sure to answer your questions at the end of the presentation or follow up with you all offline. This webinar is being recorded, and a copy will be emailed to you afterwards. Just to tell you a little bit about Caresoft, we are a trusted government IT solutions provider, delivering software support solutions to the federal, state, and local government agencies, as well as education and healthcare. Caresoft maintains dedicated teams to support sales and marketing for all of its vendors, including ServiceNow, Google, F5 Networks, and Adobe. Our contact information will be displayed at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to give us a call or send us an email. Now at this time, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. We have Jorge Garcia, he's the Principal Product Manager at ServiceNow, Matt Fisher, our Senior Advisory Solutions Architect, and Brian Myers, he is the Solutions Executive of Risk Products also at ServiceNow. Team, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. I'm Brian Myers. I'm the Solution Executive for Risk Products, as she said. Matt, next slide, please.
There you go,
so
Brian.
As we had planned this for Matt and myself, and we were lucky enough to grab Jorge, and Jorge is going to be doing a lot of the speaking in the back half. What Jorge is working on is still coming, so there's a safe harbor notice here for our forward-looking statements. We are talking about software that's being developed and should be available to you this year. Next, Matt. So before we get started into the big part of this, just last week, Gartner released their IT Risk Management Magic Quadrant report, and we weren't planning on putting this into the report, but as you can see, ServiceNow, we've made major advances over the last 3 years. We're a leader in the Gartner IT Risk Management Magic Quadrant. And while our platform is a differentiator, it's really our ability to execute, people like Jorge and Matt, who make us clearly different. Gartner is predicting by 2025 that half of the mid-market and large enterprises will rely on risk management solutions to aggregate those digital risks in their business ecosystems, up from about 10% in 2018. So a huge change in how businesses are going to be making decisions as the world becomes more digital. Through 2025, ITRM solutions will evolve to support digital capabilities like OT, Internet of Things, and social media environments. And this is up from about 30% in 2019 when Gartner did their last. So this really changes the way people are looking at risk management and IT together. We're happy to be part of the solution, and we're looking forward to discussing how we're going to roll that solution across the risk management framework. Next slide. So we do use our own tools. We transformed our own governance, risk, and compliance processes across ServiceNow, and it made a huge difference for us, saving us nearly $1 million a year. And we've got 160 policies that are under management, and it reduced the time to do those control certifications by nearly 100%. You can see there's a short quote from our CIO, but as you can imagine, getting those kind of results from any tool is helping him in his job, doing his job more effectively, like we all have to do, with less resources and more requirements coming at us all the time. And with those couple of slides, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and let him get started with the true part of the program. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. My name is Matt. Before we get started, I just want to check how my audio is. Can everyone hear me loud and clear?
Yep, we hear you fine.
Thank you. All right, let's get the party started. Before we do, I want to truly thank all of you for joining us today. Working from home sounds great until you can only work from home, and then things start getting crazy pretty quickly. I know the whole nation's pretty stressed out right now. So the fact that you took time out of your schedules when you could have been doing something else or catching a little bit of a break to come listen to us is very flattering to me. I appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about RMF approaches. Now, obviously everyone here on the phone is familiar with RMF, way more so than I am. But I just want to talk about foundationally what RMF represents. To me personally, as a security practitioner, when I look at RMF, I think it's great. It's academically very good. It is, in NIST's own words, holistic and comprehensive. And it does integrate into lots of aspects of building and managing IT. It integrates into the system development life cycles, the system engineering life cycles. It integrates into your software development life cycles. And as we know, there are certainly lots of tasks and work associated with it. Now, there's some challenges with automating this. It doesn't all work in the real world as well as we would like. And from talking with different customers, a lot of that challenge comes from the automation approaches we take. There's a lot of GRC products out there, governance, risk, and compliance, that are purpose-built for doing control management, but they end up becoming kind of their own data silos in organizations. To do RMF, you have to talk with lots of different technologies, lots of different business units, and there's a lot of workflows that cross all these different business units. These legacy softwares, talking with various developers and implementers and users, they have a very closed proprietary architecture. Some folks have told me that one of them doesn't even have management APIs. You can't even interact with the system via APIs. The APIs only exist for specific security products. And that they're very focused on the control management. The control management is critical. Obviously, lots of controls in RMF, and being able to scope those and manage them are very important. But when you look at what it takes to actually execute RMF, there's so much more to it than just managing controls. And so I get a lot of the sentiment that the software we have now, the way we try to automate it now is just too rigid. The software does what it does, no more, no less. Yes, it has the control management, and it was maybe built for this one specific functionality. But in the end, it's just not flexible enough and doesn't let us build enough other things around it. And that integrating these takes a lot of time. And then further, once you do that integration, when you build an integration just for your GRC product, it really only benefits the GRC users. So if you have to take the time to integrate different technologies and into a legacy product, so to speak, that effort benefits the RMF team, but it doesn't necessarily benefit the enterprise as a whole. And so these software approaches have resulted in a lot of challenges. Now, I'll say again, I'm not an RMF expert. I don't pretend to be. There's no doubt that everyone on the phone here knows a million times more about RMF than I ever will. You've probably forgotten more than I'll ever learn. My knowledge of RMF and my learning comes from talking with customers, from folks who are doing this day in, day out, hands on the systems, from talking with partners, integrators. And so this is what I'm hearing from them. The number one thing I hear is that there's just too much manual effort. So, we have this software that manages controls and does some of that control correlation and the sort for us, but there's still way too much manual effort required to actually execute the broader RMF processes. And because of the rigidity of the software, organizations start kind of bending their processes to accommodate the software. That's not the way you want things to work. Obviously, you want the best possible processing you can have for your agency, your mission, and you want your software to bend to your processes, not the rest of the way around. And then the lack of integration hurts, right? We think of RMF as it's cyber risk, and we think of it as kind of a security thing, but there's a lot of interactions with IT folks and operations folks and system owners and SOs. It's not really just about measuring security controls. This is a framework that touches large portions of the enterprise. And this all results in just basically taking a long time to value. We've spoken to customers who've, kind of upgraded their software. They intend to upgrade their software, but it just takes so long that it's been years, and they're still kind of working under old paradigms. The sustainment costs are higher. And all of this means that you're receiving basically reduced benefits overall. And I'm assuming less of a security impact than you would like. When things are slow and burdensome, that means you have folks doing manual work and tracking things down by hand and dealing with a suboptimal system, as opposed to doing as much actual security work as they can have. These little quote columns on the right, instantly out of date, these are customer comments. These are real things customers have told us of, we go through all this effort, then we upload artifacts into a system, and the artifacts are outdated just as soon as we upload them, right? Or we purchased this new system that, is supposed to help us, but we haven't actually integrated it yet because it just takes so long to integrate it. And then, again, the big one is so much manual work has to happen outside of the platform. And that's why I say it takes more to automate RMF than just control management. So it takes kind of a new paradigm. It takes a little bit of thinking outside of the box and thinking about new ways of doing this. The legacy approaches, based on the feedback we're getting, just aren't doing it. Organizations are kind of surviving with it. They're getting by. They're making do. I haven't met anyone, not in the DoD, not in the civilian government, anyone who says, oh, we're super happy with our RMF program, and it's just a well-oiled machine, and it's so efficient and works great. Haven't heard that from anyone ever in the world. So what does it take to really automate RMF the right way, right? Well, you deserve to be able to automate the work that goes into RMF. Not just do a bunch of manual work and then kind of upload controls and upload artifacts and mappings, right? To me, that reminds me of like doing taxes. When the accountant says, oh yeah, I'll do the taxes. I need you to do all these worksheets and tell me like how much you spent on this and how much you spent on that. I'm like, it feels like I'm doing all the work, and then I'm giving them that data, uploading that data, and then they're just kind of plugging it into forms, right? So you deserve to have the actual work of RMF automated. And you deserve something configurable and flexible, right? Something that makes it easy to work with, easy to adapt to your processes, easy to work across lines of business, so that, maybe an ISO is super skilled in your existing GRC, your existing RMF system. You need something that makes it easy for everyone in the organization to use, not just someone who uses it day in, day out, but easy for the IT folks, easy for a system owner to interact with, easy for someone to kind of just walk up and get started with. So you deserve something that integrates very well with the rest of the business. And very importantly, what gives you real-time ground truth, right? Live data, central data, not uploaded artifacts that are out of date as soon as you get them. And this should give you a much faster time to value with lower sustainment costs. which means that you can focus on doing security as opposed to focus on doing the mechanics of RMF. And that's what we provide at ServiceNow. We are the platform of platforms. We automate work, and we make work flow. We make workflow across the entire enterprise, not just from a cyber perspective or an RMF perspective. And we do it with a very comprehensive platform, a platform that gives you a consumer-like experience. And what I mean by that is there's an inversion several years ago. A long time ago, it used to be that the best technology was at work. And if you're as old as I am, you remember those days. Consumer technology just really wasn't there. Work had all the good stuff, the expensive stuff. And then there's a flip-flop. Now our mobile phones, our home computers, the web that we're used to, in many cases, vastly outpaces the technology we use at work. And so at ServiceNow, one of the things we really try to do is bring that consumer experience back into the workplace. We do it with ease of use, we do it with automation, and we do it with nice touches like instantly making applications mobile ready. We do it with conversational features and the sort. But the way this platform works is what gives us so much power for RMF. This platform at its core is built around the premise of letting customers automate work. So at its core, it's really this kind of rapid development environment where we give you all of the building blocks of work automation. We give you building blocks like a workflow framework, not just a workflow, but a framework for building workflows with integrations and automated actions. We give you a framework for dashboards and reporting. So we don't give you a dashboard. We give you the capability to create and manage all sorts of dashboards and reports. Things like orchestration, even embedding knowledge bases into the platform, right? All of these capabilities to let customers automate their work. And customers have built lots of incredible things out of this. But then on top of this, we give you out-of-the-box applications. And again, not just risk management applications or security applications, but applications to help you manage your IT service management, manage your problems and incidents and requests, right? Your operations management, getting that network visibility and doing discovery and mapping your services, how computers and systems relate to each other to define a program that delivers a service to your organization, hardware asset, management asset, all of this on a single platform, a single database, a shared data model that makes it incredibly easy to work across all these different lines of business, to manage tasks and workflows and processes across all of these organizational units in a single environment. And then on top of that, we built our integrated risk management. So our integrated risk management absolutely gives you all the control management you would need, right? It gives you very easy, flexible ways to assign controls and risks to different assets or people or processes or organizational units. And we make it very easy to do continuous monitoring with things like our risk and control indicators that can monitor data and allow you to define specific conditions or thresholds and automatically generate risk failures, control failures, along with the work process that comes behind that of generating remediation tasks and tracking those. And it's all these capabilities that gives us a very unfair advantage when it comes to managing RMF. Because you not only get the integrated risk management, and we use the term integrated risk management very intentionally because this is built on the ServiceNow platform with all of those capabilities, all of those different functional units and business units brought together under one umbrella. So we give you this integrated risk management, right, alongside all these other great out-of-the-box capabilities, but built on this magical platform that gives you so much automation and gives you those building blocks. We don't just build these statically. If you've never gone in and actually started configuring around ServiceNow, it's an incredibly transparent platform to work in. And so this lets you bring your actual RMF work into the platform. So as opposed to working outside of the platform, dealing with spreadsheets and phone calls and emails, I was a contractor once. I played that game. I lived it. I understand it. In fact, I'm so old, we still printed things off and kept our ATOs in 3-ring binders on the bookshelf. Instead of doing all that and then approaching your RMF system and kind of uploading it into there, and I've witnessed it, right? Okay, we upload this into here. Now we type this into there. With ServiceNow, you can automate all of the activities and create true RMF automation, not just an RMF management environment. So this lets you get to value much faster, right? The platform approach, the fact that we have all of the asset information, all of the IT service management, the vulnerability information, all of that in the same platform lets you deliver much faster and lets you automate much more, right? Get that manual work automated in the platform so you can focus on what you're really supposed to be doing, which is improving your cyber posture. You're not really supposed to be messing around with spreadsheets 3 hours a day, right? That's kind of an unintended side effect. So you can actually automate the work, start driving up your security posture, spend more time hunting down the APTs and the bad folks, while at the same time reducing your sustainment costs, lowering the operational costs of doing RMF. And this approach has been reflected in our products. As Brian showed you, the analysts think very highly of us. And it's also a reflection of the ever-increasing investment we ourselves are making in our integrated risk management. These are major features that we've released over the last several years, and you can literally see the ramp, right? It looks kind of like a stock chart. You got a 45-degree angle up to the right. The integrated risk management is one of our fastest growing lines. It's an area where our platform approach just crushes everything out there. And we continue to make new investments. What I'm going to do now is turn him over to Jorge. He's the one you really want. I know that. And he's going to talk through how we are building RMF automation in ServiceNow, but leveraging those platform capabilities to do it in a little bit of a different way than you may have seen in the past. So with that, Jorge, thank you. If you want to go ahead and steal sharing, I'll stop sharing and mute. Thank you very much.
Let me know if you can see my screen and hear me okay.
I see your screen and hear you great. You're the Charlie.
So, all right. So as Matt said, we have been building something to solve for this RMF process in ServiceNow. And so I'm excited to announce that we have this purposely built solution called Continuous Authorization and Monitoring that we will be releasing in the October of this year as part of a store release of ServiceNow. So what I'll walk you through is not necessarily how the solution works. As Matt said before, the RMF experts are you, the ones that are sitting in the audience. We learn from you, from your experiences, from listening to your problem statements and seeing what type of just interactions you have with your current software or the way that you do it outside of software. So what I'll walk you through is how we interact with other pieces of the platform to truly give you as much automation as possible as part of this solution. So before I go there, I'll just touch on a few highlights of things that we will be doing as part of the CAM application that we're releasing. So the first thing is, we'll be able to define our authorization boundary, and I'll walk you through what that looks like. Perform risk assessments. These are both organizational risk assessments targeting the authorization package, risk assessments specifically for privacy or security or whatever the case may be. We'll have control baselines and information types that help you through kind of that categorize and select phase. We are introducing a mechanism for control inheritance to be able to inherit implementation steps, the compliance status of controls that were applied in a different system, but be able to see those results and essentially gain that protection from those controls that you're inheriting from. We have the capability to create poems and then finalize with a risk summary that helps you through ongoing authorization and monitoring. So we have pieces that will essentially walk you through the entire flow of RMF. And so from an automation perspective, I'll kind of walk you through what that looks like. On slides, unfortunately, we're still not able to show you the application, but feel free to reach out to Matt, myself, or Brian, as we can probably give you a demo in the near future. So the first thing that we do is we leverage existing asset data to create the system boundary or the authorization boundary, right? So one of the things that I used to do kind of in my past is that I used to sit in SOCs as a security analyst and have many conversations with other security analysts that have done this for quite some time. And there's obviously great attributes that make a security analyst, but one of the things that makes the difference between a good security analyst and a great security analyst is understanding your environment. So if you see a large data pool out of a server that has data pools every single day, then that's okay. But if you see a large data pool out of a server that's, doesn't really interact or doesn't have a lot of exchanges of data outside of it, then that's when, understanding your environment makes a huge difference in security. And so when I've spoken with customers and spoken with people that do RMF on a daily basis, they often talk about creating these authorization boundaries in Visios and Lucid Charts or some other type of software to visualize and create that authorization boundary. But they don't truly connect to their asset repository or their asset inventory. And so the first thing that we thought of is, well, we have this great data as part of our CMDB, but not just our CMDB. We have other types of data in ServiceNow around what are your business processes, what are your business units, so not just IT infrastructure, but also business infrastructure information that allows you to create relationships, right? And this is information that security may not necessarily have the bandwidth or the resources to create and then maintain, but IT probably does, right? They understand all of the servers that are out there. They understand some of the relationships to business processes. And so as part of our IT operations management, we have capabilities to go out there, scan your environment, discover your environment, start mapping those assets to business context, right, to understand exactly what they're doing. And then what that allows us to do is that when we are creating the authorization boundary, we understand the software that sits on servers that you may own. We understand the facilities and have a good understanding of what business processes. So in the case where you own servers as your authorization boundary, what the facility means to you, what those business processes means to you, what the software that sits on your servers means to you. And we have the ability to visualize that and map all of those things. And then the last piece is, as Matt alluded to earlier, right, RMF talks a lot about the software development lifecycle. And so when you talk with IT, they are creating an inventory of all of these assets. So you gain that visibility, you understand the business context, but as your DevOps team starts building some of additional tools that you are creating in-house, we can embed RMF as part of that lifecycle. So that RMF is not just an afterthought, and security is not an afterthought. You can embed security as part of your development, as part of your DevOps team as they build some of these tools and solutions and applications that you'll leverage in your environment. So all of this data becomes part of your authorization boundary. And so when you create your boundary, it's not a snapshot in time. It's not a Visio diagram that you've uploaded. It's actual relationships back to your CMDB, back to your business infrastructure inventory, so that if anything changes, you have real-time visibility into those changes. If you have any software that is being installed in those servers, you have real-time visibility as to what that means. And if anything needs to be patched, you have that context all at your fingertips and all part of the authorization boundary that we created. The second thing major feature that we'll do is risk assessments, right? And so, as Matt said, we are heavily embedding ourselves with our risk portfolio, right? Risk management framework. Naturally, there has to be some synergies with our risk management solution that we have for the private sector, and it does, right? So RMF, I see it as another risk framework. It is mature, more mature in some cases. Obviously and naturally, it focuses heavily on security, privacy, and some components in supply risk. And so that's why we thought it had great synergies with what we're doing as part of our risk management solution. And so with performing risk assessments, we have capabilities to include automation in those risk assessments, in fact. We have capabilities as part of our advanced risk assessment functionality where you can continuously have indicators that tell you what your risk is, right? So again, just like with those authorization boundary diagrams where they are a snapshot in time, risk assessments tend to be another component that are snapshots in time, right? You perform a risk assessment a year ago, and that is your view of risk at that time. With advanced risk, we can have key risk indicators pointing to other data within ServiceNow or outside of ServiceNow, so that if, as part of a risk assessment, you're asking yourself the question if you are truly secure, right, through obviously a bunch of other questions, you can start monitoring, well, do I have two-factor authentication on my servers? Is the facility that I'm part of, do they have video camera systems? And so you can actually maintain a lot of these indicators going back to your risk assessment to give you, just like real-time visibility in your boundary, real-time assessment of your risk from both an inherent perspective and residual perspective as well. Alongside with risk assessments, we have audit management capabilities, right? So at some point during the authorization package, and I'm jumping ahead here, but that's because I have to, is we have capabilities to perform internal audits, right? So when your security control assessors have to come into your organization to perform those audits, they don't have to maintain that in a spreadsheet. They don't have to maintain that in their own system. You'll have the capability to display that information that is relevant to them, right? So there is access control that has been defined for them. But they come into the solution, they view all of the relevant information that they have to review, and then they do the work in ServiceNow so that you get the results, you get their findings, and you get the recommendations all in one platform, right? So again, it's about being able to do everything in a single place so that all of your information is consolidated, right? And risk management, at its core, right, it's about removing silos, both horizontal, and that's what we're showing you, right? We are starting to remove silos from a horizontal perspective so that things that are happening in IT inform the risk management program. But it's also about removing silos vertically, right? So that if things that are happening down at the server level are surfaced and are visible to the organizational kind of leadership so that they can start making risk-informed decisions. So our entire risk management portfolio helps us remove silos horizontally and vertically. But our solution is built on top of the risk management solution to give you purposely built RMF capabilities, right? So POEMs, for instance, is something that only happens in RMF, and I'll go into a little bit more detail later, as well as control inheritance, which I'll go into a little bit later as well, is something that is particular to RMF. Very mature functionality that I think other frameworks and other regulations will take a look at. But as of right now, it's particular to RMF. And so what we are building is on top of our risk management portfolio. And the reason why we do that is because and this also comes from NIST. They give us this ERM playbook, and RMF is kind of built on top of that ERM playbook, where you start from identifying the context, right, business context, IT context, all the way to monitoring and evaluating. RMF goes through those steps, but it's not just RMF, right? We can start solving for ISO 31000, for other regulations, right? So that in this graph, we have this great capabilities in ERM and give you all of the necessary tools to build that ERM playbook. We are solving for RMF, and hopefully between the two, we can start closing in the gap, right? Because it makes no sense to do RMF in one application and then have to do ISO 31000 in another application. The same controls can be used to mitigate risk. The same control tests and assessments can be used where you test once and comply with many. And as Brian alluded to earlier, right, we made that decision to align ourselves heavily with risk management because IRM is the only leader in both Forrester and Gartner, right? So there's a great foundation for us to leverage, for us to lay on top of, and that is why, we made that very conscious decision.
Jorge, while you're going into this, can I break in for just a second?
Go ahead.
I see people are starting to answer the poll question now, so if we put a poll question up on the screen, we'll have at least one more, maybe two of these during the track, and I'll try to do it at a break for Jorge, but I just wanted to get these poll questions out. So please answer the poll questions for us, and we'll discuss them during the presentation or at the end. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem, Brian. So just like we do risk assessments with our risk management solution, we're also doing control baselines and control inheritance through risk management. So we are building on top of those control life cycles. We are building on top of those other regulations that as an organization you have to abide by. Any other best practices that you follow, you can all have that in a single platform. And you'd reduce a lot of effort associated with testing controls, implementing controls, etc. The last piece that we do in risk management are the poems. And so in our private sector risk management solution, we do have this concept of issues or findings. An issue or a finding in the private sector, you remediate or accept, which is what you do with a poem, right? So if you choose to remediate, that is when the poem comes in, where you have to define those actions and milestones that you will take in order to mitigate that risk. It is a little bit more involved than our out-of-the-box issues functionality, so that is a place where we have expanded that functionality that we have and introduce additional RMF functionality to track those poems and be able to create acceptance tasks when you chose to accept the risk as well. Alongside of that, poems are typically associated with vulnerabilities. My research suggests that poems are for any control failure, but vulnerabilities tend to be the one thing that is closely associated with poems. And so we do have an application in our security operations business unit for both security incidents and vulnerabilities. And so if you have any security incidents that are tied to those assets that you define in the authorization boundary, those are automatically related to the package and generated as a poem. So I'll repeat that again just because I want to make sure that that's clear, right? So when we defined the authorization boundary in the beginning, through our other kind of IT functions, anything that is related to those assets, we can automatically just gain that visibility into. So if the asset has a security incident associated to it, that is surfaced in the authorization package. If it has a vulnerability associated to it, that is also related and visible in the package itself. And then we also have configuration compliance capabilities, right? So that checks to see if the password strength has been configured the way that your control defines it, right? So all of these three things contribute to generating the poem, but also to give us a risk summary, visibility into how things are truly performing without having to bring in scan data from other systems and having to parse that. The vulnerability response application has API integrations to these scanners, and it automatically parses that information, and we gain all of that work that they've done in our CAM application. And then the last piece is, when we have changes, we have incidents, anything that touches on, in this case, availability, right? So if there is a patch that brought down all of our servers, right? If there is an outage that we need to be aware of, then this impacts our availability, right? So it's not so much confidentiality and integrity, right? That's more around security operations and other things. But anything that happens from an IT help desk perspective may impact our availability, right? And so in that case, we also have visibility into what is happening from an ITSM perspective to grant you a final risk summary, so that when you do perform that authorization, and when all of that is happening, you gather all of the relevant data. In most cases automatically by just having those relationships as a foundational of your authorization boundary, and then they can make a risk-based decision based on real-time information, not a snapshot in time, not a risk assessment that is a year old, but hopefully things that are relevant and are happening live within your environment. And so what I've shown you is kind of the left-hand side of what ServiceNow offers. But what I'll close on is really the entire kind of ServiceNow suite or ServiceNow portfolio of applications that we can also gain a lot of information and insights from. And we are continuing to release other applications outside of this buckets that you see here. And again, with RMF, we are solving to remove those silos, increase security, giving you as much automation as possible so that you can focus on what's truly important. So with that, I'll close and I'll pass it back to Matt just by saying that this application, strictly built and purposely built for RMF, will be part of the October 20 store release. So Matt, back to you.
Jorge, thank you so much. You did a great job as always. So I think we have a few more survey questions here for everybody. It looks like Brooke is throwing them out there for us. And Brooke, as you stated, I believe these surveys help folks get CPE credits for this. So if you have you're an ISC Square certification or some other certification you're trying to keep current, this could be helpful to you. In the meantime, if there are any questions, feel free to type them. There's a Q&A panel. There's a way you can kind of raise your hand, or you might even be able to just kind of shout it out. But while everyone's finishing the surveys, I'd like to say again, thank you very, very much for taking time out of your day to join us. Brooke, Brian, I'll turn it over to you too. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Looks like we do have some questions rolling in. I'll pull back up these polling pods as well for you guys. We have Evan's contact information available on the screen if you would like to follow up with us offline. But first question rolling in, team. Is your solution for automated RMF being proposed to DoD? How does it integrate with EMASS, EMASS?
Yep, I'll take that one. So our solution is being developed and specifically for the federal space, including DoD. As far as integrating with EMASS, that is a future capability that we're working on. We needed to crawl, walk, run. We consider the integration with EMASS as being the next phase.
Awesome. And just waiting to see if any more questions pop in that Q&A box. As we mentioned before, you guys can put them there, or if you'd like, we can follow up with you all offline. I would like to thank our presenters today for being with us, as well as all of our participants. We also have some other CPE polling questions for you all to answer, just in regards to the presentation today. We do hope this was helpful for you and your organization, and if you guys have any questions, again, please feel free to follow up with us. We appreciate you and hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.